So I guess I'll just start by explaining, like Laurie said, about how I got into entrepreneurship, and then I'll talk a little bit about Launch, and then I can, tell you guys about Foundation, which is my current startup. So, yeah, as Laurie said, I went to Launch in 2014, part of the second year. I think I was the second session. And yeah, it was amazing. It provided me with a lot of different resources, mentors, teachers, a big network of speakers and students to kind of just play off of and learn from and garner ideas from. And I'm actually still friends with a lot of those people, today. Still have mentors from the program and everything like that. So I even loved it so much. I went back and I was an intern, I think in 2016. And then I was actually also a residential counselor in 2017. So really like Launch. Hope that I can even maybe go back someday and be another counselor or something like that. But yeah, after Launch, I kind of got catapulted into a ton of different entrepreneurial programs, hackathons. At the time, I was going to boarding school actually in Arkansas, and I was in my second year when I had gotten back from Launch, kind of thinking about, what can I do to, further the company that we started, which was called LandMe. And so I kind of worked on that for a little bit. It was a little difficult though, because our whole team was spread out. We had, 4 kind of separate lives going on. A couple of my co-founders actually ended up going to Ivy League schools, so they, had a lot of responsibility there in terms of their education and family responsibilities and stuff like that. So we actually decided that about a year and a half, I think, or 2 years after the program, that we weren't going to continue it, but that we would still, keep it on the back burner as a potential opportunity to come back to. And actually, since then, I've had some people message me about LandMe and actually try and help out with it, bring it back to life and stuff like that. So that's actually something I've been looking into and trying to see, if I have the bandwidth to maybe just take it online and keep it there for, people that are interested. But yeah, so after LandMe, I actually ended up going to college. Initially, I'd committed to Babson, which is also in Massachusetts, near MIT and Harvard and all those other great schools, but had some family things myself and ended up having to come back to Arkansas, which is actually where I'm currently at now. And yeah, I went to college here for a little bit and didn't really end up liking the traditional education path, the post-secondary education path. So I was searching around for different things to do and got an internship at a local company in Arkansas called the Arkansas Regional Innovation Hub. And it's kind of just like a co-working space, maker space set up. They run entrepreneurial programming and do all that kind of thing. So I did that for about a year, and then I transitioned while I was still in college. I actually, with the help of a connection of Laurie's, got a job at a company in Boston called Formlabs. So I was there for 2 years almost, had a really amazing time. And I think that something that's important to know about my entrepreneurial journey in specific is that I didn't necessarily like shove my own idea like down my throat or like make sure that I had to pursue one certain thing. Going to Formlabs was kind of like a outlier, I guess you would say. Instead of me, doing my own business, I kind of had to take a step back and, join a company that was already, properly seated and had a good market share and, had tons of employees so that I could actually, learn a lot of the different things about company structure and operations and stuff that I maybe wasn't necessarily exposed to at a smaller startup. So I think that really helped me a lot to gain, perspective and to learn a lot more about the internal workings of sales and operations and all that good stuff. So that was a really awesome experience, and that's what led me to my one of my.
I guess yeah, you call Form Labs like a bigger company, although I guess I still think of it as like a bit of a
startup. Yeah,
so
I mean.
So I guess for people at the call who might not know what Form Labs is, do you want to just share like the super quick, like, 15-20 seconds or what Form Labs is?
Yeah, so Formlabs is a desktop stereolithography company. So they're a 3D printing company that makes 3D printers, and they're actually more recently expanding into other types of 3D printing other than SLA. Now they make SLS printers, which is selective laser sintering, which is nylon. So that's pretty sweet. But their whole mission, I guess, is to basically make it to where you can take these really amazing technologies like SLA and SLS that are traditionally hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, for a makerspace or a lab to acquire, and you can shrink that down into a desktop version that you can put, you know, in your house or in your office or something like that. But yeah, they're doing really well. I think when I joined, I was employee 203, and I think they have 1,000 in Somerville alone now. So they're doing really well. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I guess bigger than like small startup, but still on the smaller side.
Small to medium sized business, I guess, or however you would call it. Yeah. But yeah, like I think that Formlabs really gave me, like I said, a lot of those skills that I wouldn't otherwise, you know, it was just a much more structured thing, I would say. And it also exposed me to things like equity and shares and exercising options and different stuff that you wouldn't necessarily get into with your own company unless you reached a point of like raising money or selling part of your company or something like that.
Yeah, and it's definitely a cool perspective, because I know a lot of students, especially, I mean, like a lot of Launchies go to like much bigger companies, right? Like they think of getting experience as going to like a Google or
GE or
Facebook or Apple or like one of those kinds of companies to get experience. And I mean, certainly that is a certain form of experience, but in those bigger companies, like I think the rules are so much more written, and your job description is so much more written. So when a company is only like 200 people and growing to 1,000 people, there's like, I think a lot of differences in the way the company is set up, and a lot more potential learning and growth. So there's just a lot of differences to think about in terms of what you might be looking for at that stage of your career, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what I was really looking for. I mean, I was applying to those places, right? And that's something that maybe I can speak to a little bit too, is actually rejection, because me not having a post-secondary degree actually makes it very difficult to navigate those sorts of companies. I'll give you an example. Actually, more recently, even after I left Formlabs, I already had I think it was 3 years of professional work experience at that point, or 2.5, because of the Innovation Hub and then because of Formlabs. And I had a warm referral, like someone who worked at the office that I was trying to get into at Google, and I didn't even get an interview. So, I mean, it's pretty crazy and competitive these days in that regard, because, you know, there's algorithms that screen your resume, and there's certain things that those bigger companies do that kind of, you know, just push you out if you don't have, you know, certain prerequisites. But that's, you know, that's not to say that, you know, eventually in the future I couldn't get a job at Google, or that I don't want to, but it's just, it's definitely something to consider, like when you're going through your career path and stuff like that, whether or not a degree is required or not. I would say more recently, now these days, it's not so much a big issue, but it still does definitely play a factor, you know, versus experience and stuff like that. So that's
it certainly depends on what it is you want to be doing with your career going forward.
Exactly.
Right? Like I know it's something that you've kind of like preferred a little bit more, that entrepreneurial route, which means that, you know, maybe like landing that job at, you know, Google or something might not be the end all be all, versus you know, starting your own company again at some point.
Yeah, so it's kind of a silver lining in a sense, right? So it has given me that perspective of, you know, instead of going the corporate route, you know, what can I create that is really like new and different, instead of something that's, you know, structured as a company like that would turn out to be, you know, massive and very centralized, and having like those levels of like how being able to promote and get moved up and stuff like that, and having those very niche job descriptions. Like at Formlabs, like you said, it gave me a lot more mobility to you know, I moved actually from sales to sales operations, and just that one singular move at a company like Google like probably wouldn't have been possible, because they're completely separate departments, they're completely separate management structures and skill sets that are required and things like that. But I was kind of learning live on the job at Formlabs, getting to experience, you know, all of that kind of lean methodology, like scrappiness, and learning all of those things like on the fly, which kind of puts some pressure on you. It kind of forces you to learn some stuff because, you know, if you end up not learning it, then you might, you know, be without a job pretty soon. So it put me in a place where I really did have to learn a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise looked into. And that's what I guess the next section of the professional career or entrepreneurial career would be after Formlabs. I actually ended up joining another startup that was even more closely related to my interests and what I really wanted to accomplish, but yet it wasn't mine still at that point. It wasn't like my company that I helped create. I was just still an employee at that point. So, but that's Obelisk, and that's a cryptocurrency mining company that I actually joined in 2018 after I left Formlabs. And I worked there and shipped 12,000 hardware devices all over the world, which was a crazy experience. Tons of learnings and mistakes and problems, and as there is with all hardware. So that really taught me a lot of
awesome.
scrappiness.
Now, if I remember properly, you had done some like Bitcoin mining back when you were when you were younger. So that must have
so that's like that's like pre-launch even. So that's at the, if we really want to get into the root of the entrepreneurship stuff, when I was like 11 or 12, I was reading tech like news websites, like, you know, people who review like the newest headphones or the newest laptops or things like that. And I thought that was the coolest thing. Like at the time, that was kind of like post.com bubble when everyone was making blogs and tech review sites like that. So I kind of wanted to do that. And that's kind of where I started. I wanted to start a website where I reviewed new products and made ads and got ad revenue and stuff like that. And that flopped horribly. But after that, I started getting into Minecraft because one of my favorite tech review sites had a Minecraft server. Like these, I think it was called Techno Buffalo was the name of the blog, and they had a server where you could go play Minecraft. So I thought that was the coolest thing. Actually ended up meeting some people who were my age at the time, 13, 14 years old on this Minecraft server. And years or months, actually just months later, 6, 7 months later, we ended up starting our own Minecraft server, and that kind of expanded and blew up into us selling Minecraft servers. And that's what got me started in the business of selling servers and like VPSs, virtual private servers, and web hosting and stuff like that. And then that propelled into, after the server hosting thing, me looking into doing Bitcoin mining servers, because it was a similar kind of physical structure. Like if you host a server in a data center, they measure it based on how much space it takes. So it's like 1U or 2U or 4U or whatever. And the servers that we were using for game server hosting, we could theoretically, we thought we could fit a Bitcoin miner in that space. And then, you know, just have people buy that and put it in data centers and host them just like we were hosting Minecraft servers. And so that was what I really wanted to do at the time. But if you can imagine, I mean, I think I was 15 or 16 years old trying to do that with one other 15-year-old kid with no funding. And it was just a crazy scenario that it didn't end up working out. But it was kind of serendipitous.
That set you on the path,
right?
You know,
it's kind of serendipitous
towards then Obelisk.
Right. Yeah. So at Obelisk, it was kind of fulfilling that dream of when I was a teenager of wanting to build Bitcoin miners, even though they weren't Bitcoin miners, they were other cryptocurrency miners for Saya and another currency called Decred, but you know, still the same principle of technology, and we were designing and building ASICs and stuff like that. So it was really amazing to see that come to fruition. So after Obelisk, though, you know, we were having a little bit of discrepancy and decision making between us and the parent company, and we wanted to do some other products after we had shipped the miners and you know, continue the hardware business. And so there was kind of a disagreement there, and so we went and started our own company in April of this year called Foundation Devices. So that's currently what I'm working on now. It's called Foundation. And I'm extremely excited to actually show you and everyone, you know, hopefully some launchies in my class, you know, the finished product here in actually like a few weeks. It should be, the prototype should be done. But actually before we started, I was showing Masha, this is just like a, I don't know if you can actually really see this because it's just a 3D print. It's not the actual device, but this is like the size of what it's going to be, our first product. And this is called Passport. So it's a cryptocurrency key storage device, so a Bitcoin hardware wallet. And so you'll be able to transact Bitcoin with this device using QR codes. So it's completely air gapped. There's no ports. There's no rechargeable lithium ion battery, no Bluetooth, no Wi-Fi, none of that. It just communicates directly off of images. So it's a really secure and private device for your Bitcoin transactions. So that's what I've been working on more recently, and we've actually raised a pre-seed round, and like I mentioned, we're going through the prototypes right now. So we're really excited to build and launch that so that we can kind of, no pun intended, build the foundation for the crypto space hardware-wise, and kind of, you know, after this, build more products like nodes and routers and other things that I can't talk about right now. But really cool stuff for the Bitcoin industry to kind of support, you know, that next wave of ideology around sovereign money and decentralization and all of these principles, you know, that people want in their day-to-day lives, but don't really have. You know, there's like this big gap that, you know, people like we were talking about even with entrepreneurship, it's like if someone tells you about Bitcoin, you start thinking like, man, this is way out there, like this is insurmountable, right? So we're trying to make it to where it's super easy to get involved and to get started and to actually utilize cryptocurrency and Bitcoin easily, so that it can be, you know, more mainstream or more well adopted in the space. So that's kind of the goal of the new company and where we're headed.
Yeah, and I know there is like so much excitement about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So excited to see
Definitely.
if you're starting to make it more attainable. And I mean, as you know from LaunchX, like we talk about when you do have something that you're trying to make accessible to everyone, it does start with you know, even just one customer. So like what,
Right.
like who are going to be those early customers, those first customers?
Yeah, so we're hoping to really target hardcore Bitcoin maximalists at first. We want to win the hearts of the people who are already, you know, heavily using the product and have, you know, either companies themselves that are Bitcoin related, or, you know, people that just use it on a day-to-day basis for, you know, whatever they do, whether it be work or for life, or everyday purchase. But our main focus is making the device verifiable and trustable without having us basically be able to do anything bad to the device. Like, we want our users to know that no matter what, that their device and their keys are going to be protected, and that there isn't any gaps in the middle of the supply chain where someone like an attacker could come in and mess with the device or change the firmware or do something malicious to affect that user's keys. So our biggest focus is on that, and the way that we do that is through verifiable materials. So, for example, the screen that's going to be included on the device, the circuitry of the screen is etched directly into the glass, so that we can easily verify that circuitry at production through an X-ray and make sure that there's no embedded processors or other things in that display that could capture information. And to give you an example of something like that, like if someone took your iPhone and replaced the screen on your iPhone, there could be a chip in that screen and you couldn't even know it, that could be taking all your capacitive, you know, input data and stuff like that. Luckily, Apple has really great security. They're one of the best privacy companies in 2020, but you know, still with other devices, even devices in our space or other you know, LCDs have that potential to have that processor in there. Same thing for the keypad. That's one of the reasons why we decided to do a keypad instead of a touch LCD, a touch screen, because we can easily verify each of those keypads when we go to make the device. And it's just certain things like that. The keys are actually stored on a secure, what's called a secure element, that's the same secure element that Apple uses in the next gen iPhones. So theoretically, we're using like the same key storage methodology. It's just on a device that's not internet connected, so it has much less potential to be, you know, penetrative, tested, or hacked, basically.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, and I mean, I know it's an area that like the safety security is like basically
Right.
number one, right?
Yeah, and that's why we're also building it in the USA, which is, I believe we're the only Bitcoin hardware wallet company that will be manufacturing hardware wallets in the United States. Our biggest competitor, Ledger, which I believe sold around 1 million hardware wallets in 2017, 2018, they're in France. And then our other biggest competitor, Cold Card, is in Canada. So there's obviously a bunch of competitors in China that manufacture in China or Taiwan or Vietnam. But that's another important thing to us, right? Supporting American manufacturing, supporting American jobs, and trying to make sure that we have that level of verifiability as well on the supply chain level, where if I wanted to, I could go drive or fly to the factory and verify that everything is happening correctly, and that there's nothing, you know, funny going on.
And when you talk about all those different competitors, like what is going to be the thing that allows somebody to get out ahead, or is it just a matter of like the market share?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing from our perspective is, you know, a lot of these hardware wallets that are on the market right now, they work for the purposes of storing crypto, but they're not very easy to use, and that's like kind of going back to like what we were talking about the insurmountability of you know, new technologies like this, or entrepreneurship in general, is that it takes a lot to understand all the underlying mechanisms and protocols and stuff that goes into all this stuff. But our goal with Passport is to just make it so simple and easy to use that, you know, if this was your first time interacting with Bitcoin or a hardware wallet, it would be just so stupid simple that you'd just be able to pick it up and know what it does and know how to use it. So I think that's going to be the key thing. If you know, if you think about a company like Apple in the early 90s, where they were doing their design work and Steve Jobs had such a, you know, asinine like points about the iPhone and the design, and like being, you know, super critical of everything that goes into how it looks and how people use it and the haptic feedback and all of these, you know, little things, and how they're really important for, you know, the device and the adoption of it. That's where the method that we're going towards, or the route that we're taking rather, is trying to make it so easy to use that everyone wants to use it or learn how to use it.
Yeah, I think I might have even told you this before, that when I worked at a design studio before, the phrase that we would use for Apple design is simplexity, taking something really taking something really complex and making it really simple.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that's what y'all are trying to do, is
yeah, exactly,
like boil something, and that's what really great designs do.
Yep.
And I think what a lot of companies mistakenly do is they leave it complex, because they think that, oh well, like let's show off how complex this cool thing that we did is. Like customers want to see how complex it is. And no, like customers don't care about complexity. They want simple.
Yep.
Like
or they just want to be able to use it.
They want all the features, but they don't care about seeing all the features. They just they want the simplicity.
yeah, and so that's the thing. Like for example, Ledger's Nano has 2 buttons on it. So if you can imagine, like in Bitcoin, there's something called the seed phrase, which is basically a backup of your password that's 24 words long. So if you can imagine having to enter a 24-word seed phrase with 2 buttons, that could probably get pretty frustrating, right? So that's why we have 18 keys on our keypad, because it makes it really easy to quickly, you know, iterate through numbers, iterate through letters, caps, uncaps, things like that. And it's less of a learning curve per se of how to operate the device. And you also don't have to, you know, plug it into anything or you know, do any charging with it or anything like that. It's incredibly simple. So I hope that a lot of people, you know, really notice that attention to detail and everything that, you know, we've done with the device, because we have put a lot of thought into, you know, those types of things, even down to like stuff about like the actuation force of the domes underneath the keys and stuff like that. Like it gets very detailed. So you know, I think that's probably, you know, the thing that's going to separate us the most from all the competitors is just that we are going to be the easiest to use, and it's going to be the sexiest device on the market. And so people are going to want to buy it because it's going to look good, it's going to work, you know, how it's intended, and it's going to be super secure and manufactured in the States. So.
Well, I know you also mentioned that y'all raised some seed funding. I imagine
Yep.
that a number of people that may be on the call here, or, you know, when we put this on YouTube, would be curious to hear how y'all went about that. Because I mean,
yeah. Again, a lot of rejection.
Any tips for people? Any tips for people that try to raise funding?
Definitely. And I'd say, you know, if the same thing with funding goes for just starting a company in general. You know, I'll give some general advice, I guess, is that, you know, you can never give up. You got to keep really hitting the pavement over and over and over again, and just not taking no for an answer. I mean, when initially we went to raise our fundraising round, it was the start of a pandemic, right? So a lot of people didn't want to give us any money. They didn't want to give anyone any money, right? They were all scared, didn't know what was going to happen, didn't want to allocate funds. Or you found the opposite in the market, where there were certain VC funds that were just blowing money out of the water like it was nothing because everything was so cheap. Interest rates were going to zero, or still are at zero. So there was a large influx into the market as well, but we couldn't find the right people that were, you know, saying that, that also had the overlap in our industry. So we were finding people that, you know, were into crypto but didn't want to release money, or we were finding people that wanted to release money but didn't know anything about crypto. So it was really hard to find, you know, that sweet spot of either, you know, a small venture capital firm or an individual an angel investor who was well aligned with our vision and understood the space, and then also had money that they wanted to release at the time. So I mean, like I said, it's definitely a lot of rejection, and you just got to really form your narrative. And if what you're telling investors isn't working, you should probably change what you're telling them, or change who you're talking to, right? So I would just say try and find the, you know, the investors or even the people that are most well aligned with your vision. A lot of times that may not be a big A16Z Capital, or a big, you know, someone like that. It might, you know, likely be your uncle, or you know, someone you know that has 10 grand that they want to seed your company with. So it's really just about finding people that believe in you, that know that you can do what you're saying you're going to do, and that have the risk tolerance to actually give you the money. So I like I said, I would just say to, you know, continually try and you know, hit the pavement as much as you can, and just keep going for it, and you know, be realistic with your goals. At the beginning, we were planning on raising anywhere from 1 to 5 million for a pre-seed round, but then we actually ended up just taking our number all the way down to $500,000, and then we actually went over it and ended up raising $750,000. So it really just depends on you know, what you want to do with the money and how you explain you're going to spend it. You know, with hardware, there are a lot of costs that you incur with prototyping and R&D and etc. So you know, we needed a lot of upfront money to accomplish that. If you're trying to do a software product, you probably shouldn't ask for that much money for pre-seed, unless it's some crazy idea where you need a big team of people. But like Laurie always says, it's all about getting an MVP out there, right? And showing people that that you can do what you're saying you're going to do. That's the biggest thing. If you can show off what you have and convince people that you can make it better, that's the easiest way to get money, to get investment.
Yeah, and I mean, persistence definitely pays off. I think a lot of people assume also that there's just certain personalities that are better at selling or not. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is that it's a learned behavior. Like you've got to just get out there and you know, do that bit of trial and error. Like you said, if there's things that aren't working, figure out how to fine tune your messaging. Figure out, you know, who are those people that are at that overlap of crypto and having money.
Right.
And it's just trial and error of learning.
Yeah.
It takes a while.
Yeah, it does. And like I said, we had a couple of months there where we didn't have any money. We didn't know if we were going to raise money or if it was just a bad idea. But the point was, we are passionate about it, and we are serious about it. We have the skills that we need to accomplish it. So that's, I think, the reason why we were able to successfully raise money, is because we already have working prototypes 6 months later, with a 4-person team. So you can definitely do whatever you set your mind to, and you gotta really be passionate about what you're doing and grind it out. And then once you get to that point, you just got to tell everyone and their mother that you're doing it, and hope that they believe in your vision as well, and support you.
Yeah, absolutely. Every entrepreneur goes through those moments of so to everybody who's out there on the line, like, yep, you see the stories out there of the confidence, and then all of us have been through those moments of, oh, do we have enough money? Can we actually make it?
Yeah. But I think that's the important thing, right? Is even if we, I would say even if we didn't have money, like my team, that we would probably still be pursuing this idea, just because we believe in it so much, that we know it's almost a certainty at this point, right? That what we're doing is going to work out. And I don't think that I would be involved or doing it if I truly didn't believe that. So it's really exciting, and I think that once you get to that point, you really know that you're in that position and that you're in it for the long haul. With some of the other experiences I've had with quote unquote professional work, not so much just Form Labs, but other things that I've done that aren't as official as that. I didn't have the same feeling about what I was doing, right? You always have like that thought in the back of your head, like, oh, I don't really want to be doing this right now. I wish I could, go do X, Y, Z. Whatever that thing ends up being, I feel like you should, if you're an individual that's interested in entrepreneurship, you should definitely pursue those ideas wholeheartedly, and edit them as needed.
Yeah, I think that is a wonderful sentiment. And I guess any final tips or advice for our aspiring young entrepreneurs here?
Yeah, it's a mouthful of a word. I would just say, like I just said, persistence is key. Finding, something I really remember from launch is building painkillers, not vitamins. So try and find a problem, in your everyday life or in society that you think is just really outdated or wrong or could be improved, and focus on creating things that solve those issues. Obviously, there's a lot to solve in 2020, so there's tons of potential companies, nonprofits, businesses that you can make to support your community, support America in general. So really just think about that, and try and just go after it, and try and fail fast.
I love it. Well, it was awesome catching up. I'm so excited.
Awesome to catch up with you too.
From a company soon, and additional iterations from there. So excited to stay in touch and hear from that, and wonderful sentiments here. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks.
And this will be posted to YouTube as well soon. So thank you so much, everyone.